Well, let's go a little deeper because something that you and I chatted on before we started talking is I know for you normalizing the conversation about like mental health and the work that people being comfortable to talk about or engage in the work of being okay or getting okay or at least finding a space to really talk about it. So during the pandemic, especially in the kind of job that I do, I just saw people breaking down. And I was breaking down. Everyone was. It was really hard. But now coming out of it, I do think there's more openness to the conversation. And I know companies are like, oh, let's talk about mental health, but it's still like stigmatized in our society. So, what do you want to tell us about your own journey? Like, what's important to you in this conversation?
It's really important to me when I'm talking to band members, the clients, and just with anyone in general that I'm really open about mental health. And I just say, hey man, like, you think I got it so together? Like one of the reasons why I might seem so level-headed is 30 years of therapy. And I'm not I bring it up like as flippantly as someone might say, I went and had a smoke, or I went for a jog. I go, oh, went for my Wednesday. I had my Wednesday therapy. Like, I got to do it. And it's really helped me with give me tools to like function in life. And was prior to going to therapy, I would always like have like these moments where, like, how do I end up in this situation? How do I, here we are again. I'm in this same situation. I'm in this cycle. Therapy kind of helped me show, hey, dude, it's not the other people. It's you. It's you that put yourself like, remember when your friend went and did this and you didn't say anything? And then you ended like, and I was like, wow, I'm attracted to this behavior, or I'm attracted, and I was like, yeah, I got to break this. And that was like the building when I had that first epiphany, like with my first therapist. But it's really helped me with like boundaries and just like being able to learn, like being able to say, no, I'm not doing that. Hey, this is not good for me. This is not good. Like, this is not a situation I want to be in. And I try to, in my life, like I really try to avoid um, using soundbite or terms like toxic, toxic personalities. Like I think that sometimes once a certain word gets thrown into your lexicon, it becomes like becomes just a word. Like a lot of people, like, I think one thing that annoys me, someone's always using the word gaslighting. I go, let's just call it what it is. It's lying. You're lying. Like, uh, let's be direct. But yeah, therapy is really like, it's one of the reasons why I come off as so together, because it's really given me building blocks of having stability, and teaching me things like the importance of sleep,
Oh yeah.
like sleep hygiene, things like that. Like, I didn't know, like, one of my therapists said, you practice sleep hygiene? And I'm like, I take a shower before I go to bed, you know? And it's like, no, 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 no. This is what sleep hygiene is. And I was like, wow, man, that makes total sense. And it was like, I'm a guy that's not into like brand name things. I don't have to have the best of it. I don't need to have the most modern iPhone. But one of the most, in the last few years, like expensive thing I ever bought was I spent $2,000 on a mattress. Best investment I've ever made. Because, you know, for me at least, it's like sleep, food, sex, most important keys to like having a good stable life. I realized I wasn't getting proper sleep because I'm also a coffee fanatic. And I was like, why am I not getting good sleep? Oh, because I had 4 cups of coffee today and my anxiety levels are going nuts. So I like stopped with the coffee. Now I have maybe a coffee every 2 weeks. But my sleep is so good. And I literally, like, for the past, like, I don't know, good 6 months since I stopped taking so much caffeine. I hit the bed 5 minutes later, I'm out. And I really try to get like 8 hours, no matter what.
My wife and I travel with travel pillows. Like we have like specific pillows that we bring with us everywhere
That's awesome.
because we invested in nice pillows so that we can do this. And dude, sleep hygiene is like we did a whole episode on it. We have these short versions of the podcast called Sprints, and we did a thing on sleep hygiene. Our sleep was like horrendous 6 months ago, and for literally every reason you just said. For us, it wasn't a mattress; it was pillows. Game changer. And by the way, everyone, this is not just us being old. Like it totally matters. Let's go back to 30 years of therapy. 30 years ago. So I know, as I said earlier, it's like the conversation around mental health seems like it's like everyone's game to do it, but there's still a ton of stigma. And breaking through that stigma, I think, is one of the most important things we can do as not just a punk community, but just a global community, is like really normalize talking about mental health, just like you talk about physical health or diet or anything else. But 30 years ago, the stigma is like through the roof. So, and sharing whatever you're comfortable sharing, like what made you take that leap, or how did you find the guts to take that leap?
I realized I was on a pattern of behavior that was either going to end up, I was going to accidentally kill myself or someone else. Like I was being really careless, a lot of like partying. And I was driving my roommates nuts because I was just a lush, and it was a lot easier to self-medicate than deal with what I was going through and process it. So got to the point where one of my roommates just said, dude, you're a handful and this is getting old. And I was just like, you're right. And so I was just like, I need to stop this. And so it was, I know specifically, it was right before New Year's Eve, and I went to go see the Muffs at Raji's. And at that show, they gave everybody a plastic champagne glass and gave everybody champagne. When the New Year came, we all toasted. And I took one sip of the champagne, I threw it in the trash, and then I told my friend that I was at with the show, I said, all right, that's the last drink I'm going to have for a while. They're like, what? I said, that's it. That was my only drink. And then I go, you know what? I'm kind of a mess right now, and I need to get on the right path. So I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to do anything, and I'm going to go into therapy. I think I need it. And so I sought out. This is pre-internet. I actually went through the yellow pages and found a family counseling place. I went down there and made an appointment and told them, like, I'm just angry. I was in a really bad relationship and this other stuff I'm dealing with. They would ask all the usual questions, does alcoholism run in your family? Does this? And I ended up, it was the scariest thing I'd ever done. I remember being in the office waiting to just do the entry interview. And like, I've played at Fender's Ballroom in front of 600 angry skinheads before, but in that office waiting room was the scariest thing I'd ever done. I was ready to leave any second. But I did it. And my first therapist was Bill Singleton. And it took the first few therapy sessions were scary because I kept feeling like, oh, he's going to say I'm a piece of shit because I'm feeling these things. I'm a bad person. And then I realized pretty quick, I was like, no, everyone has these feelings, and there's times I'd leave therapy and I'd feel physically exhausted and wrecked. And other times I'd walk out light and just felt like a whole burden was like, and there's a Final Conflict record where he's actually thanked on it. I thanked him by name because he really kind of like, again, I'm here because of that guy. Like, helped me process a lot of things. And again, a lot of it was like, hey, dude, this isn't other people. This is you. You're just not processing this stuff right. And So I've always consistently, throughout the moves, when I moved to Austin, Texas and stuff, I've gone to therapist. I would go through periods of like maybe like not going to a therapist for like 6 months or a year. But within the past like 10 years, I've just realized that it's a real key. To me, it's like no more than doing band rehearsal, and I'm also, uh, when I've talked to friends and they've told me things, I've said, "Hey man, have you ever considered therapy?" And I was like, "Cause I've been going forever." What? Yeah. Like yeah. I know some people, might be afraid to say that. They might think it shows weakness, but I've been doing it long enough. I know it shows strength, the ability to say, "Hey, I need some help." And I want it to become a more normalized conversation because I know what it's done for me. It's really helped my ability to work with people and communicate with people better and be on a better level. Um, and uh, just process a lot of like traumatic things that have happened in my life as a kid, and not carry anger, because I had a lot of anger about things, and dealing with it in therapy. And really, it was a lot of it was just talking about it and shared experiences. One of the things is realizing that I'm not special. I was dealing with a lot of things that lots of people deal with, and having someone to speak to tell me that and saying, "Hey, this is how these people deal with it. Here's some tools." You know, uh, and it's a functional, like it's an important and functional part of like my being. Like it gives me the important coping mechanisms. And that's why I'll tell some of my friends, "Hey, I know you think that I have it together, that I'm a real together guy, but one of the reasons is because I go to therapy. I get this poison out." You know.
So I was an addiction and mental health therapist for about 10 years. And um, people would always say to me like, "Oh, Aram, you've got it so composed. How can you listen to all this suffering all the time? You just seem so grounded." But I was like totally not grounded. And the funny thing is you'd think a therapist would be like super willing to go get therapy, but it was like, no, I just took all of this stuff and I just pushed it down and pushed it down and pushed it down. And a lot of the ways that I dealt with things was through working. And so like bands, like I'd make myself busy with bands, or like we'd go on tour, or, whatever it is. I was constantly, constantly busy and enjoying none of it. Like depressed, upset, feeling bad. And I fell into a lot of like people pleasing habits because something that did make me feel good was helping people. And I kind of took that bridge from like helping people in a way that was like easy for me to do to like helping people in a way where I was just like giving, 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 and like kind of always feeling like, "Oh, this sucks. This doesn't feel good. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of." And then voicing that to people and then kind of being like, "Oh, you're being such a, like fucking cry me a river kind of thing." Right. And I hit a point in my life where I just kind of felt like, well, I guess it's just my lot in life. Like, like this is just who I'm going to be while being a therapist and not going to deal with it. I had a lot of like shame and anxiety about talking to people about it because I'd gotten so much feedback in my life. I was so together. It's like, and being told you're together feels good, but it also feels bad because you're like, I guess I can't say anything about how I'm not together. And then things progress in my life. I take some kind of like personal life hits, but then I just had this really one major event. And it was a bunch of major events that happened all at once, like all within this like really tight period. There's probably like a 6 month period where my whole life was turned upside down. And I came fucking crawling to a therapist, like on my last legs. Worked with this therapist named Christian Monks in Vancouver for a few months and then stopped for the other reasons I won't get into, and felt I had it enough together. And again, like kind of like push everything down. This is when I started Cadence. And for about a year, things were going well. Cadence was going really well and everything. But like all of this stuff that I'd started processing with this therapist that I'd suddenly cut off, just I'd push it down. And it kept coming up and up and up and up. And one night I had this sleepless night and I thought, if I don't go and see this therapist again, this is the end of me. I'm done. And I don't know what that meant. Like, I don't know where that went, whether it's like I just stressed myself to death or whatever it was. And when I said before I was like crawling into that guy, this time I was like, if carried me out on a stretcher, I was finished. And I saw Christian for every week for 2 years straight to kind of just like piece myself back together. But at the same time, I'm running a business. I was like, I'd started a family. I was just working on being a person. And that's how that change record came together, was through him. Basically, he was like, you're so tied up. You're so like tied up inside. You need to express yourself. And he was getting me to like just write lyrics. And they're terrible. They're terrible. But you refine it, you go through it. And I'm such a believer in mental health stuff, but also at the same time, I could just be totally full of shit where I try and hide it because I want to be that together person. And the more that I allow myself to not be that together person, the more I become that person, because I talk to people, I can be open about stuff, I can be vulnerable about stuff, and I can express it. But it took me a long, long time. And that's why it's such an important part of the podcast and why we do talk about it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I actually had the exact same thing happen almost. That you like, I got out of therapy. I got so busy with work and got distance from it when I was living in Austin. And then I had a series of events that started to make me crumble. And I wasn't feeling physically well. I went into the doctors, and he was very annoyed with me. That's the vibe I got from the physician. And he goes, here, he handed me an iPad. And he goes, I need you to answer these questions. And it was just like, are you having trouble sleeping? Have your thoughts? I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, I'm having pain in my side, like and weird stuff going on. Like, I'm having digestive issues. I'm not, so I go through it and I fill it. He comes in instantly. So he obviously was getting a live feed of my answers. And he goes, okay, Mr. Martinez, I was let you know, you're a bundle of nerves and you're about to have a psychotic break. When's the last time you saw a therapist? And I was like, I have not been a therapist in a year and a half. I've been so busy with work. And he goes, yeah, we already discussed this. He goes, you're dealing with sick parents. You've bed flying back to the West Coast to deal with your father with cancer. You run a business. You have all these people that are responsible for you need to take care of, and you're not taking care of yourself. You're giving me, he said that I was giving him a vibe of unsteadiness. And he was like, we need to get you into therapy. I want to give you some medication. And I got back on track. But I was having the exact same thing happen to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I was taking care of everybody else, making sure my clients, making sure everyone, the tours went well and then and everything. But I wasn't taking care of myself. And I've made sure not to let that happen again. That like me first, like as far as I can't be good for my business, can't be good for my bands if I'm not focused on being good here, for myself. So
do you mind if I add on to that, like me first piece?
Yeah.
I understand from a societal perspective why the idea of like me first has like a negative connotation, because it sounds like you're being selfish. I counter that. I think it's selfless to take care of yourself, of your needs. Because the less that you do that, the less you have to give to people. The more that you do that, the more you have to give to people. And I'm going to give you an example that has to do with airplanes, which is ironic because there's so many planes flying over us. At the beginning of a flight, the flight attendants say, if the masks come down, like put yours on first before you put it on anyone else, including a kid. And it's not because flights are like anti-child or anti-helping people. It's the idea that if you put someone else's mask on first, especially if they're a kid or a person who's unable to do it, but you pass out, that means there's less adults who are able to help with everyone else. And also a grown adult who passes out is way heavier to carry than most people anticipate. So when you're putting on your mask, what you're doing is, by putting this on, I'm making sure I can help the person who couldn't get their mask on. And you're also saying that means nobody has to take care of me because I'm going to be able to take care of myself. Conceptually, around like mental health or physical health or any of those things, putting yourself first, taking care of your boundaries, managing your health means that nobody has to do that for you or has to do that at a minimum for you. And it also means you can actually take care of people more. but it feels counter to what we're told about like self-care or being a good person is like, oh, taking care of yourself first. I just like, why, like, I was so stoked when you brought that up before we talked. It's like mental health is like any other thing, you know, like you got to eat well, you got to exercise, you got to take care of your mental health.
Yeah, 100%. And it's important to my functionality, not just in a, for work, but also to be social, and pleasant to be around, and so it's one of the things that since that past slip where I didn't go to therapy for a while, I don't neglect any longer. Like, and it helps me be better at my job. It helps me like with coping mechanisms through even like when I'm dealing with a situation that is really difficult. It helps me process like getting stuff done. And again, taught me the importance of boundaries when I was like, this is a situation that I don't want to be in this situation. And instead of enduring it, I'm going to communicate that not happy. I don't want to, I'm not going to do this, or I don't want to be a part of this. And uh, also helped me become more of a tear the Band-Aid off type person, where when dealing with a situation that's uncomfortable, instead of avoiding it, dealing with it right away. Like, let's get this done because this is the hard part. Let's talk about this situation. Let's get this done. Because instead of having this moments of dread and making something a lot worse than it really needs to be.